the school year.
I always get her mixed up with the other.
They can take one day in August and teacher work week and Super Bowl Monday.
That's very
Flex
sweet.
day, so they could get it off if they couldn't because we need them here in the summer.
Has everybody seen it? I don't know, did Troy? Yeah.
So they could make that work.
I think
we've all seen it.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm thinking, because the kids are already off.
All right, here we
It's not a
go.
bad idea.
I'm always thinking about Super Mondays.
All right, we're going to get started.
It is hard.
Call to order the Camden R3 Board of Education meeting regular session in the Administrative Office Boardroom, Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Griswold.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda for January 23rd, 2024 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And we have a couple things we want to do before we get into the agenda. And we have our student advisors last meeting. I feel like it goes really fast.
I know.
Like, with Mia Rapp, and we have an appreciation gift.
Yeah,
That-
if you don't know, Mia, if you're new here, Mia has been a great part of that, really, really cares about Camden, cares about her school, has been willing to speak up about things that we need to work on and do better, but also been very appreciative of the education she's gotten at Camden. So I told her, we've been trying to recognize her for a little while, but with, she's busy, like our student advisors are, so she was unable to be here at some other events, so we've got this for you. Mia.
Yeah, take a picture with,
Yeah, and then we'll look back here, because I think this, so we'll do this, and congratulations, thank you so much.
don't move.
I'm in one in portrait mode because I'm a mom.
Yay.
And I did tell her she didn't have to speak, but she could say something if she wanted to, but that's totally up to you.
Well, I just think overall from like some things that I learned because I had to fill out something for the yearbook. I don't know where to face.
Yes.
You can
Keep
face
it like
that
that
way.
corner.
That way, camera?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna stand right here. I had to fill out something for the yearbook, and they kind of asked me like, what was one of the main things that you learned from being student advisor to the school board? And something that I learned is like the amount of teamwork that goes into every single aspect that normal average students would just brush over. Like this is normal. This is what happens. And so I just think there's so much teamwork and so much effort that goes into the school and into the education system, and I was just really impressed. And overall, I really loved getting to come here and getting to listen and observe, and yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And a real quick introduction to Mia's replacement, because we always keep two. John couldn't be here tonight, it's senior night with wrestling, so John can't be here tonight, but we've got Lexi Keith, and Lexi will be assuming Mia's spot with that, and we've already met and had our first discussion, and she had great questions, so I think she's going to be another great contributor to the whole process, and it's great to have the students here, love it. So,
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Lexi. And then real quick, we have a birthday, somebody who helps the board out a lot. She's probably really annoyed that we're embarrassing her so much today. But Linda Lou, it's her birthday, so I have a little gift for you. Just something small, but just appreciation for not only our board, but the boards of the past. I appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thank
that's
you.
very nice.
Happy birthday, Linda.
Piggyback
And
on
she
Make a
also got
wave.
Wavemaker.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, just
Yeah.
in front of everybody so they can see it, Linda spent 14 years in the district, and she spends a lot of time helping our school district to function really well. She is hyper organized, she cares about this school, cares about everyone in it, she just does, and works so hard every single day. She was the Laker Wavemaker for a latest recognition. We got to have that celebration today and have some of her family here, and it was just a great day for her and befitting for somebody who does so much for the school district. So Laker Wavemaker, Linda Lou.
Yay!
wave maker, you give them a wave.
Oh, God.
Wave.
Oh, good.
Come on.
All right. Do you have any public comment tonight? No public comment. All right, so we will move to consent items. We did discuss some of them during the work session. Do you have any questions since you were?
Nope, I read them all before and.
So we do want to go ahead and accept that bid for Get the Lead Out, the Jeff City company. I just,
I'm fine with that, but if you want to review it more, I know there was this or that.
no,
but-
I don't care. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. I don't want to put us in a bad situation with not having enough money for
When do we
filters
have
if we
to-
needed it.
When do we have to have that
But-
done by?
It has to be approved and ready to go.
Done by August.
August.
Oh.
Remediated.
August one.
We think we're gonna have like some basic.
All
Yeah.
checked and some
Remediation.
filters. Everybody's had to put filters in.
Yeah.
So gotta have it checked, gotta have some filters in place before August 1, so it's ready for
There's
student
quite a big
attendance.
discrepancy in the,
We talked
Oh,
about
okay.
that.
The reason behind
It's
it.
okay.
the reason-
We think,
the
with
quick reason behind it is
speculation.
that-
Yeah.
that They know how much money we get. We get $89,000 from the state, okay?
so
Up
they're
to.
just trying to.
So Osage Beach, that's why theirs was more.
Okay.
We think, we don't wanna,
Well, we,
Right,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wanna-
well, that's,
we don't wanna, they're gonna be like watching.
They're probably doing twice as much stuff, I'm just saying.
There might be more, that going into it, yes. But
I
we-
don't know the owners or anything, so.
So beyond the bid, then room for us to actually do the remediation steps, cost.
Oh,
There's a
gotcha.
bid, but then on top
Right.
of that would be the cost of
Yeah.
filters.
Yes.
yeah, and we know there'll be some,
I would rather go with the local thing,
hopefully
Jeff City.
nothing major, but
Right, I was thinking
we
the
don't
same
wanna
thing.
paint ourselves into a
We would-
corner.
We would love to stay local, but those aren't really in the same neighborhood. They're
Right.
pretty far apart.
How much do we have?
So is there anything on the LCTC enhancement grant, so it looks like we're getting a lot of good stuff?
Yeah,
At half or 75% paid for? So
Is that similar to what we did last year?
I think it's the same.
It's pretty much the same thing, yeah.
Well, actually, we're not expending as much local money this year as, or next year or this year. So when you look at the local money that we spend there, I think this year was 126,000 something, and next year's 99. So she actually has reduced our local money costs.
Are we getting less, or we just didn't need as much stuff, like things?
We've gotten some grants that we didn't know we were gonna get, like the Gear 2 and then the Mako grant as well, that we really tried to just utilize in a good way so that we can minimize the impact on our local budget.
On this one, yeah.
So, I feel like we've just been good stewards with that. And we try to just make sure everything that's on there has been
What you
advisory
need.
approved and
Yeah.
is something that we need. So that's not to say that that won't look different year to year, but we've just been really fortunate to have some other funding.
Okay, great. Sounds good, thank you.
Move to approve consent items as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the bills. I have a separate explanation of the payments over 5,000. Thank you for doing that every time. Any questions on the bills, or do you need more time to review?
As far as like the Leucalit Electric, do we ever, can I request it? I'm just kind of curious of how how we trend as far as our electric bills through the buildings. I notice sometimes our gym lights get left on overnight, and I'm just kind of curious if we're being conscious and
Not if a
following-
wrestling coach is the last one to be in there, I'm just saying that out
We
loud.
actually just started doing that and putting it into a spreadsheet where you can look at it from monthly and year to year. But, I mean, we're working on that right now, where I am myself.
Appreciate that. I know you guys do a good job on minimizing maybe new
I
LED
mean,
lights
it's
and,
utilities are a big outlay every month.
yeah, we all watch our bills, so
Yeah.
thank you for keeping an eye on that.
How are the new security cameras at OBE? Are they working?
We haven't begun yet, so they're supposed to be starting the first 3 weekends, the next 3 weekends, I believe,
Okay,
for installation.
okay, so
we're
we
hoping
got
we'll
our
be
down
up and running
payment in
by
then.
the middle of March.
Okay. Good.
Move to approve all bills as submitted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have treasurer's reports.
So our ending balances are up, and that's mostly in debt service and capital projects where we need those to increase. Our receipts, our total receipts for December wasn't a real good month. So our receipts were less than last month and our expenditures were more. We did have some big expenditures, namely buying 2 buses, you know, 200,000 there. That led to us, our expenditures being higher. When you look at the year to date, our receipts are up slightly, our expenditures are down about 850,000. Our local revenue is down, but that's because the December collection this year was 1.5 million less than December last year, which was kind of worried me a little bit about collection rate, and is it gonna be a bad year for collection rate? But then just today, we got our January collection for local taxes, and it was 4 million, just a shade over 4 million more than last January. So it's just, you know, when people chose to pay, so that was kind of a relief. All the other revenues, county, state, and federal are up slightly. Well, federal's actually up a lot, but that's because we all know we had that one-time ESSER II payment that's really, you know, not gonna be there anymore. So minus that, all of them are up just slightly.
That's a reimbursement on stuff that we've already spent then.
Yes, yeah. The medical fund, we started, you know, when we set that, you know, that money in there to prepare for all the buyouts and the payouts on that. We set that effective July 1, it was at 1,948,000. At the end of December, it was 1,477,000. So we've spent about 470 to this point out of that, and which is, I think, real encouraging still, because that's going to go down. So that's a bright spot. Not really in finder summary, but just so you know, which I'm sure most of you probably do. You know, we got the after-school grant cohort 11 this year for like 239,000. Just recently, Beth Miller and Shayla Veely worked on getting the state come out with money for enrichment and some after-school grants for this second part of the year, and they were able to obtain 203,000 for that. So our buildings that when we talked about in the fall, we didn't get that grant. We were all upset, which is middle school, OBE, Oak Ridge, Dogwood, those schools we thought were not going to be serviced. Now there are funds there for that, and there's, you know, scurrying trying to make that happen because, you know, it's one-time money, but it does get us where that's going to be running out at the end of the year, and then cohort 11 is out. So hopefully we can restructure after-school program, write a really good grant, and get it moving forward that can service all of our needs. So hopefully that all happens. I did want to do just a quick mid-year budget review with you. I mean, you guys approved the budget at the beginning of the year. You're kind of, you know, budget amendments as it goes by. But just take a big picture look at where we are halfway through the year. When you see all these 6,100 codes, that is all of our payroll. So when you kind of summarize that and look at for December, at the end of December 31st, that's 6 months into the year, this is where we are at. This is what we had spent, 13,742,222, which that is 40% of the money that we have budgeted for that. Now, if you look at the past 2 years, which these being fixed costs, you should see pretty consistent trends from year to year. At the end of December in FY23, we had spent 42% of what we ended up spending total, and almost identical the year before that. We spent 42%. So I feel good where we're at on our payroll, which is the biggest chunk of our budget. As you can see, $33 million budgeted just for salaries. Look at the 6,200s, which are our benefits. Once again, fixed costs, these should be fairly consistent also, but they're not. If you look at this, and I think I can kind of, that's really totally due to the way we've had our insurance set up in the past. So if we do this year after year, I think ultimately you'll see some real consistent numbers here too, but right now they're not real consistent. But, I mean, we've spent, that's how much we've spent, $4,475,000 on 6,200, which is all benefits. which that is 46% of what we have budgeted. And there, what you see, they don't look real consistent. Once again, when we get down further and we look at just insurance, I think you'll see that's kind of why you're not seeing a real consistent trend there. Just to keep on going through the budget, 6,300s are purchase services. Now, you're not ever going to see a true consistent trend here, but it's still good to look at where you're at. And we've spent $2,896,000, and which is 51% of our budget. So you could think, oh, you know, the way you're trending, you're going to be over budget. But when you think about services, I mean, some of them are monthly, like utilities and things like that. But then others, you know, people buy licenses up front for the year. So still feel pretty good about that one. When you look at the 64, sorry, I told you wrong numbers. 6,300s, yeah, okay, they're at 46%. 6,400s are supplies. We're at 51%. And that's, once again, when you buy supplies and what is never going to be truly consistent, but we're still right there. We're in a good position, I feel like, to come in under budget. One thing about supplies, I mean, I think Sean, when he started, he wanted to talk about, wanted to pay for people and not stuff. And when you look at our supply budgets, we're budgeted like $5.6 million for supplies for this year, which is less than both the previous years. So that would be consistent with his philosophy of spending money on people, not things.
No Yetis.
Pardon?
No Yetis.
You'll go get these. 6,500s are capital project items, which once again, those can be all over the place from year to year. You can see where we're at. It's showing that we've spent 64% of what we have budgeted. Once again, we've already done some pretty big projects. Do a lot in the summer starting out, did a lot of paving and whatnot. So still feel good about that number. When you look at insurance, if you look at our insurance this year, this is what we paid in July, which July is a low payroll month because they do a lot in June. But if you look at those numbers, 301,000, 339,000, 343,000, 344,000, you can see we're getting to a point to where we're staying pretty consistent monthly is what we're paying out for board paid health. And when you look at other years,
What's that,
because of our structure of set up with the self-pay, you see some consistency. Like if you look here in FY '23, at 263, 298, 305, 309, 308, 315, 304, but then bam, 609,000. Bam, yeah. So, and that year is worse because we got to the end of the year and had to do that buyout. But when you look back at FY '22, which would have been a fairly normal year, I would have thought, for the program. You know, you have 558, 257, and you kind of 305. You see some common numbers around that 305, 305, 301, 303, but you have that 708 that jumps in there when you probably did a transfer. You get over, you have a 597 and a 595 where you probably did transfers. So ultimately, have those consistent bills every month will make that when you get back later on in years to come, when we look at that 6,200s, the fixed cost, it'll make
Easier
all
to
those more
budget, yeah.
consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had many months there where we had transfer.
Yeah. When you look at revenue, at the end of December, we had brought in a little over 19 million, which was 31% of what we had budgeted to bring in. And the previous 2 years, you can see we're at 25 and 27 at that time. If you take that ESSER payment of 1.2 million and divide that, it's right at that 6% difference. So I think you'll see, I think our revenue is running fairly consistent too, with the exception of that one payment. So just on January 5th, I just looked, and I mean, this is still getting used to the financial structure of this district with that big local payout. Like for today, we got a $30 million local tax revenue check or deposit. So as of January 5th, we had spent $27 million and we'd only brought in 19 million in revenue. So now when you think about that, for spending stays somewhat the same with the 30 million we got today, that makes that look better, because when I'm sitting there looking at that, that stresses me. But that's just the way. Good.
What did you get
So
recently?
overall, I think our budget is is,
It's a really big one.
I don't know if you have any questions on the financial, but.
I just want to get a picture
give
with
you
the check.
Mid-year update.
$30 million check?
I don't think, like, it's not a physical check.
No, it's not.
No, but
I told him
but
it's
Happy
like
Gilmore
that.
got
we
checks
want
when
one of
they
the
weren't
big
real-
ones.
I mean, they did it for Happy Gilmore.
I don't
We can
think
get a check.
people would like that.
Bring that one, maybe, have the board get their picture taken with it.
You're gonna be a target for a lot of comments with that one. Is that it on your report? Okay, thank you. Thanks for breaking that down. What's the overall? You're just saying, we're trending okay and?
Yes.
Yeah,
We're turning to be under budget, right?
to be under budget?
That's
We
what he
always
said.
look for it.
Okay, well, we won't, we'll keep trying to trend
Yeah.
under budget. Okay, thank you.
Move to approve the December 2022 treasurer's report as submitted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we get to the big one.
Okay, for new business, the calendar for next year, we spoke about it a little bit work session. But if you just want to give a quick summary, somebody, of what the difference is for the people watching
Yeah, I can-
now.
Maybe, I can run through that.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be as descriptive, but
No, that's all right. So really, we had a couple different calendar options that we wanted to present to you. I don't know if that's gonna pull up.
I always
there.
like that we're in like Nepal or somewhere.
Yeah. Somehow we lost it.
Wherever
That's
that
a
looks.
that's a 40-mile mark.
Yeah. Oh.
I think you guys have this in front
Nice.
of you.
Our
but
mountains are
I'll
getting
try
bigger.
one more.
Pretty.
Over there. So we had two different options, and really for the most part, there's not a lot of differences other than spring break. And so I'm just gonna kind of run through that. If you can plug it in and pull it up, see if that works. And so we kind of, real quick summary, we want to maintain a couple of different things. One of it is going to be that recruitment and retention piece within our staff. We want to make sure that we're able to have that guaranteed calendar in terms of weather forgiveness days. We will still try to put in for that AMI, but we don't want to use our alternative methods of instruction for weather makeup or anything like that. That's really just in case we have some facility or major issues and we need to go that direction. So we'll kind of continue to put that on there within the calendar. It says AMI, but not for weather makeup days. We do have the requirement of the state. So our first start date would be August 20th. A week prior to that would be our teacher work week. That's the same on both options. Really, this fall semester is going to be identical in both options 1 and 2. One we wanted to try to stress is that we have a professional learning and collaboration days, parameters to be established by the district, working with the principals and our teacher groups, and potentially even our parent advisories when we get into parent-teacher conferences. So we'll see that. There's an early release time for parent-teacher conferences on both options in October, where the students will be released at 1 o'clock. Parent-teacher conferences will begin from 2 and go until 7 to kind of get a better array of input from our teachers or from our parents to join us. And then November, keeping consistent, we'd like to propose that we keep the fall break, that Thanksgiving week, as it is. December, that Christmas break, if you will, that winter break is 2 weeks. Then we get into where they kind of change from option 1 to option 2. In both options and calendars here that are presented, you will see that teachers would return as a teacher workday on January the 6th. So students would then start on the 7th of January. We maintain those 1 day a month of professional learning and collaboration days. And then we get into March. And March is really where the difference lies. And that's going to be lying in the difference of our spring break. We know that it's important to have a full week worth of spring break. The way that the calendar lines up, that'll still give us that Good Friday, Monday following Easter as a later spring break, if you will. But we wanted to look at those two options. In option calendar number 1, it's a later spring break, and really the only true justification of that is that it's going to be potentially warmer weather. That was the only thing that we wanted to kind of put that a little bit later in the calendar. We did get some input from multiple people with athletics, from speaking to Dr. Kurtz. Really that earlier week in March is a little bit better because there's a little bit of time in spring. Athletics are getting started up then versus a little bit later when there's contests for spring break. Also, there's going to be a less opportunity of instructional breaks as you're leading into the MAP testing and end of course testing. If your spring break window is earlier, then you're going to have more consistency leading into that state testing. So that's why that earlier date's a little bit better on that front. We've already talked about during work session, we're trying to get to where we can get our calendar out early enough that any sitting school can if they wanted to replicate that break, that they could. Right now, we don't have it out earlier than some of our sitting schools, and so we're just kind of looking at that as a base model. And so that's why that earlier break does match up with one of our larger sending schools, and so that is a reason for consideration on that.
And the
one thing-
sending school is for the LCTC
LCTC.
mainly,
Mhm.
right?
And just community probably too.
Yeah.
Like, if you have friends that are in the other district or all together.
Yeah, yeah, it's very nice to consider.
Friends, businesses,
Yeah.
work schedules, different things could kind of play into that. It just depends. So I think if we're looking at that student-centered calendar, I think, to me, I would recommend strongly option number 2. Community minded would fit into that, but really both are teacher supported, which are our 3 goals with creating the calendar. One thing I would like to propose a change that I didn't get on there because it was late feedback from last Friday's ATM and DLT meeting was in March on option 2. One thing we would like to flip-flop is the 17th and the 24th for a PLC day. And the rationale is the 24th is a little bit later. It's closer to that state testing window where we're going to be putting in for accommodations, making sure things are lined up, creating tickets. Giving that extra day closer to that window when it's already established by the state just helps our people out a little bit more. And when we're looking at when that workday is, there's really not a big difference between those two. And so if we did that, we just kind of look at where that third quarter ended and kind of make sure that workday fell after that third quarter. So that would be the only suggestion on option 2 that I would recommend based on,
Well,
on feedback.
On that note, it seems though we trend that if we have a long break, we come back on a teacher workday
To extend
transition
students.
for the students transition better and also the teachers to come back and plan.
So that would be.
That's just, nobody has said that to me, it's just observation.
No, and that's why it's initially set up the way that it was, but looking at that state testing
It's not a
piece
huge,
and looking
yeah.
at that, that would be if we were to make that move, that makes sense in terms of the move there.
yeah,
So,
the other.
So on
move.
option 1, we wouldn't want to take it to the 24th also?
in option 1, we could take it to the 24th also if we wanted to.
Keep it 6 days in a row.
So that kind of fits with both what Ms. Griswold said about that transition piece on option 1 with that third going to a later date.
Yeah.
Otherwise, with the guaranteed calendar that we talked about with the instructional hours of 11:04, that would still get us out prior to the Memorial Day holiday, which was another goal in creating the calendar. So
Oh, that's good.
kind of those options. Again, we talked about, we can discuss that further. I think there was good teacher feedback. I think we hit the objectives of making sure that we were student-centered, community-minded, and teachers are supportive of either one of these options.
So we don't have to make a decision today, but if anybody has any questions or discussion, I would like to bring it back next meeting for approval, right?
Unless you're ready to approve it now.
Oh, I mean, I don't
I
have.
can. I mean,
I like option 1 with the moving the 3rd to the 24th.
You wanna,
wait, what?
did anybody give me a stink
Why?
eye on
Tell
one
me
way or
why.
the other? You guys are
24th.
pretty,
Well, that way he would
I
have
know,
said
it's
that helps
not
him find
comfortable
better
probably
having
saying
the
what we're-
24th.
Does everyone have
And
access
then
to
do
the
spring
both
break,
options?
It was
That much
emailed
more.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You give us an extra.
It is late as well.
It doesn't really matter.
I think I'm fine
To
with
me.
doing what works, what lines up with school the Osage this time, you know, but maybe we try to get ahead of that if, that's the only really thing that I have.
And that was option 1?
Two.
The earlier
Option 2
spring
was
break,
School of the Osage, earlier spring
Earlier
break.
spring break.
That was option 2.
it
So
doesn't
the big-
matter.
The big
And-
differences are, just in summary, what I'm hearing, the big differences are, with the 2, it's basically
Oh, we
all
need to
second
change that
semester,
one
and it
date.
has to do
Yeah.
with spring break. So the earlier spring break avoids, kids having contests
Less
during spring
interference with
break.
Spring.
Baseball
activities.
games, track meets, less of that would happen with the earlier spring break. That kind of affects our kids from a
But not as a 1.
athletic and activities standpoint. The earlier one also matches up with the School of the Osage, so those kids will be on
Don't
the
have-
same spring break for
Don't
all
have
of
to
their
come here
classes,
for their
not
spring break, yeah.
half one and half another.
And they said
Um,
for testing, it was better too, because there's more time.
And there's more time in between that spring break to get kids back in the flow before they have to jump into a map test.
But we're going
Flip
But
to
we
side of
s-
that,
Still want to move the
Or ELC.
one PLC day to the
we would, I
24th?
think, yeah, move
17th
that.
and 24th flip.
Of that last group that talked about that. And then the flip side of that would be, You know, spring break feels more like a spring break if it's actually a little later into the spring, and that March one is pretty, the first option two is a little early, but not by much. So
Isn't it just a
you're
week
talking one
difference?
week.
Yeah.
It's 1 week early, so
Well,
it really-
I mean, with
the weather's gonna change all that much.
I'd
from
rather
that
be on
once you go
vacation
further
not
south.
with college kids, to be honest, but.
I mean,
You
honestly,
want your
with,
block where you're not
I don't
on
wanna be on
college
the-
spring break. in
I
case
would,
you
not
get
that I'm
someplace
going
else.
to like where they're
Well, I hear
going.
you.
with the testing and the extra.
Yeah, that
curriculars
aside,
and-
yeah,
I mean, and lining up
Extra day to
with
come back from.
Yeah,
community,
I don't have a
I think those
I like
outweigh,
that, but
it might be
I'm-
warmer.
I mean, is that,
I don't really have an
that is a
opinion.
big deal,
Can we-
moving that
it's-
17th to 24th?
There's a lot of conversations about how that would help, just making sure that we're getting our pre-codes in for the state testing, MAP and EOC, and then making sure with our SPED departments that we're getting all the accommodations put into those requests so that when we do test, our kids have the proper accommodations.
And they won't have that by the 17th?
But generally speaking, that's a little bit later than the 17th. And so visiting with Beth Hines and our assessment coordinator is that the 24th is a much better time. It matches up where it's been consistently versus the 17th.
And then the only thing that does then is that goes away from what the staff saw as being the
Yeah.
6 days
Yep, that
in
would
a
be.
row and a day to transition back from being on spring break to get ready to receive kids back on that Tuesday.
Correct.
So there's your
That's the,
considerations there. How would the staff, did they really enjoy the 6 days together for spring break?
they have to come back,
Yeah,
they have to come back no matter what,
yeah, and.
Well, they do, but
But they control.
but they don't have to be,
they've got a day to transition
It's
back
like
to
to like
kids, get a
mentally
good
prepare
plan.
back, get your.
Yeah, not hitting the ground running quite as much, I think would be the,
we don't wanna put it all on you guys, but you haven't heard any feedback one way or the
I
other.
don't know that, I don't know that's gonna make a difference.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I think they're gonna look at fall break, they're gonna look at Christmas, they're gonna look at spring
There's
break.
plenty of that stuff.
And
Yeah.
that's gonna be it,
Yeah.
honestly.
It's not a deal breaker, probably,
I don't
more
think
than
it's a
likely.
deal
just wanted to make sure.
After we pass this tonight, then we'll find out. And then, we have had to change them before, after we've
Yeah,
passed
we can
them.
always make a
If-
modification.
If we need to make a
Yeah.
modification,
One day would be a deal breaker.
yeah, okay. So then
I think
we
it-
like,
If you guys can decide on one, I think that would probably help us,
Yeah.
because then
Then you
that'll-
can go ahead and start
Then you,
moving.
then you can
Yeah.
say, okay,
Yeah,
do you see anything that's a deal breaker with this one we picked? I mean,
Right.
they're so similar, I
There's
don't think
not
we're gonna get into
big
You can
that.
enough
adjust
difference.
some
But
other stuff.
drag it out
we
for
may come
another
back
few
to you with a
Okay.
revision.
yep. So that would be option one.
Two.
Option two, changing
March 17th to the 24th.
March.
TLC day.
So do I have a motion to approve the calendar, option two, with changing,
And moving the
Moving
PLC day
day
for
from
March from the 17th to the 24th. I'm pretty sure that's an official motion.
yeah,
I'll second.
Troy first, Kelly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let us know if. Thank you for all of your work.
Fully knowing.
I know that's a lot, so
Going in
thank
fully
you.
knowing we may have to make some adjustments.
We'll have
Get you
to
supervised.
see how many people show up next meeting for that.
I'm working
Okay,
on
we're
it.
gonna keep moving. Thank you again for everyone working on that. It's always a big
For me,
deal.
It doesn't matter because.
Okay, first read, policies. We went through over the policies. There's a lot. I don't think you really need to get into it right now. We'll just review them and we'll decide which ones we wanna
Absolutely.
do
So
next
just to
time.
kind of make this, in case you missed it during the work session, this is a first read, this is a policy review based on MSBA that are sending these out. There's some changes within legislation and different things, and so we're getting an opportunity to look over those and see how they're going to impact our district. We'll meet with the policy committee group again and kind of rehash these and kind of look at some things that we want to question or change. And so this reading is basically putting that in the hands of our decision makers and getting shared out with our administration so that we can see what we need to do. And so when we come back, hopefully we'll have some different answers, maybe some more questions. There's no urgency within these policies other than we do need to try to match up with our policies with legislation as quickly as we possibly can. But we want to make sure that it works for our district in that time.
Okay. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay, moving on. So unfinished business technology discussion. I don't think we have to do discussion because we talked
Yeah,
about
I-
moving it to a work session.
Yeah, I think
that's
we
the,
table this
we'd
for
like to
tonight
get
and wait.
the, where we're at in case, you know, everybody, people who weren't here, or folks watching at home. We've had this ongoing discussion with technology usage in our buildings at each grade level, what is the district standard for that. Locally, what do we want to do with that? So we want to set some expectations. So we'd like to get board together, administrators together, some teacher representation, and possibly even some parent representation to get at a work session where we all come together and try to, by the end of that, finalize some expectations for what that looks like and what the expectations are for our staff and students at each grade level with regard to technology. So
Has there been any work at the building level on that yet? As far as meeting with their parent groups or anything?
that has been a discussion with the parent groups, not all of them.
Okay.
But because they haven't all had, some of them got canceled because of snow days.
Different things,
and-
yeah.
And other things like that, but yeah, there
It'd
have
be
been
good
a
to have
couple.
s-
We've
if-
got some feedback from staff and parent feedback
Can
from
we
a couple
get that
buildings.
before the work session, just
Yep.
to read ourselves
Yeah,
and
we'll-
kind of
we will
process?
share that out prior
Yeah.
to, summaries at the very least, because there'll be a lot of them that comes in, so we'll
Mhm.
summarize that at the very least.
Mhm.
Give everybody a common ground and knowledge of talking about that, and then we'll, that will change, because that's gonna be a lot to talk about, so, one of the things that we talked about in work session is, the work session for February 12th, we'll start at 4 and go until 6:30, so that'll bump back our board meeting till 6:30. But that'll give us 2.5 hours to focus on basically 3 things at the work session. We wanna focus on, potential for our building trades and some discussion about what we're gonna do with our, the school-built, housing projects that we, are involved in with building our building trades house. We're gonna talk about, again, the technology usage, and we'll also talk about some staffing and personnel needs that we're working on towards helping work with student behaviors and support our teachers in that process. So those are 3 pretty big things we've got to talk about, obviously, and get lined out for 24, 25, and even sooner if possible. So those will be the things we're addressing at that work session. Just make sure everybody's on board, that we're not. And we will follow up with a summary of that at the board meeting if any decisions are made. It will be public, but we're gonna hash it out in a work session with everybody on board.
Okay.
So,
So we're gonna move past technology discussion. We'll move it along. So we have the board wrap up. I don't know if there's anything major we need to highlight. We do have the TAC meetings. That
the change to the next month's board meeting, it's, we're late this year or late this month, and next month will be quick, just 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And we'll also have
It
that
worked out well that we
extended
didn't
work
have it
session.
last night. I can't remember
Yeah.
why we didn't have it last night, though. I
No,
know we
it was
moved because
Martin
of,
Luther King
no,
Day.
Martin
but,
Luther King Day, and
Oh, why not?
we moved it back because of, it fell so early in the return, that we hadn't been here
We
for a
wouldn't have
couple of
much to
days.
do, because we had,
Yeah.
Hadn't had as much to talk
Yeah.
about.
well, it worked out.
So, it will work out, yeah.
We planned it like that, what are you talking about?
Yeah, we're,
Perfect planning.
yeah.
Planning. So
Well,
that's-
hopefully we're out of the snow days, and we know that it's been difficult for pros and cons of snow days.
Yeah, snow is forecasted for Super Bowl Monday.
Ugh. Well, might as
Like
well.
treacherous,
Yeah.
treacherous
Call it
snow.
now.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Just
I
saying.
did have a business owner come out of our office today to express appreciation for the early notification. and how
We've worked pretty
town-
hard on that, and so just publicly, in case this goes out for record, the process on that is, that is Dr. Price and his team that does that, Tony Hadfield from Transportation. Sometimes that's a 3 a.m. wake up, to get out on the roads, and they're also driving the roads in the evening. And we have one of the largest geographical school districts in the state. We are really spread out, and the weather can be very different. You can see a temperature swing that causes it to be iced over in this area, but not in this area. Precipitation falls in this area, so that is a challenge, and I am just really blessed, and I'll just say it, to work with a board and an administrative team that gets the idea of it's a safety first kid things for us, and we may make a mistake every once in a while on being overly cautious, but I think that's the way to err, and I appreciate so much the support we get from our community. I got a lot of positive back on just, hey, thanks for thinking about kids. We have to remember some things. It's not only those bus drivers. We have incredibly skilled bus drivers, and there's lots of times that we talk about it and say, our bus drivers would be good. They're used to this, they can handle it, they're trained for it. Those buses are heavy, they get really good traction, they're well built. But we also have to think about student drivers, we have to think about our staff. And those are all things that go into that decision-making process. And it has been a team. I've really also appreciated Dr. Price reaching out to all other superintendents in the area. Sometimes we're calling 4 counties over to say, what are you seeing coming our way? What's it like there right now? So, and that involves the National Weather Service and the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Missouri Highway Patrol. There's a conference call at 4:30 in the morning that we participate in every time that we haven't called early. And so it is a lot that goes into it. Ultimately, if somebody's irritated, that's me. I make that call ultimately in the end with all that good advice I get. So no reason to take it out on anybody else. That's all on me. But I do think I really appreciate the support we get because we are thinking about our staff and our kids and parents too. You know, they've got to get their kids here, some of them, or get them to a bus stop. So I think although we've had some odd snow days, right, where it's been, we couldn't make it in the morning, but we'd have been fine in the afternoon. Or the afternoon would have been dicey, but the morning was okay. That's been odd, because usually if you have a snow day, it's like the whole thing. It's the whole day. We've had some odd half days in there where we've had to make a decision that we think by 2 o'clock we may be fine, but right now it is not good.
There was one day where it was nice, I don't know about nice,
Yeah.
but okay during the day, and then 3 o'clock, like that
Yeah.
wind, and I was like,
Well,
I'm so glad that I am not.
I honestly, I saw some public comments last night that thought we were crazy for
Uh-oh.
canceling today.
Not
There
to-
weren't any this
to say
morning.
No.
Yeah.
So you gotta remember that the pavements and the highways,
Yeah.
they get cleared pretty
And
quick.
you know,
It's
that
like
was,
lake
you know,
roads.
people are saying
And
it's
the
supposed to
ground
be,
was so cold.
it's supposed to be
Just
40
from
degrees
that-
tonight. There's no way there's gonna be any ice left, but guess what? There was a lot of ice.
Well, I know our person who makes that call could not get up his hill this morning to get into work. So Dr. Price couldn't make it up his hill this morning. So there were several people that couldn't, so.
I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have had
15,
lockers.
20 degrees.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made it out of our house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
not want to talk too much about that, but thank you all for your support
No,
in
it's,
that.
I mean, last year I don't
Thank you
think
for
we
all
had
the work
hardly
that you-
any, it just depends on the years.
It's,
It's on the year.
And people gotta remember that, you know, when we're, good old days, when we used to wait till 4 o'clock in the morning to make the decision, the technology for the weather is a lot better now than it used to
Yeah.
be.
And,
They
and
predict it a lot
something,
easier.
something I don't know how many are watching, something I would like to point out publicly is we're not using the local weatherman's prediction to make the decision in any capacity. It's actual federal and state recommendations, so.
Yeah, some of it was just wintry, like extreme weather,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even necessarily a
yeah.
snow
So I mean,
day.
it's
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do get some really good insight now, and you're right, the technology is totally different now, and
Hey, there are gonna be complaints if we call it too soon or if we call it last minute, but I prefer being able to turn off my
But you know
alarm.
what?
Just
It-
saying.
I
would-
do like the night before.
I
I'm
would- I
usually
would
pushing
rather-
for the night before.
I would rather people be
There's some
upset
text
because we
going
got
out,
it
but-
wrong
Yeah.
yeah.
as far as
Just to people
canceling
complaining.
school as opposed to
Yep.
somebody getting hurt or worse if we got it wrong
I
because
think
we
in
should
every
have.
instance, we have exhausted every bit of information we have and really used discernment and thinking about kids, you know, and the collective wisdom of, you know, 15 or 20 people, including other superintendents from other schools. What are you seeing? We have, if you're saying, are we taking care of kids, we got it right every single time.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, I think we did. I think everyone did a great job, so we know
Appreciate
it's
it.
Yeah.
not an
Oh,
easy
100%.
I wanted to
decision.
explain that, because sometimes people don't know, and we're talking about, Kelsey Knight and I are talking about getting together with Tony and Jason and some of the folks that do it, Dr. Price, and almost do a ride-along, and, you know, look at the clock, yes, the clock on my car dash is right, it's 3. And we're driving roads, and this is what we're seeing, and this is what it looks like here, and here's the roads we drive, and now we're gonna flash to
People
somebody
will
else
forget
who's
about
on
it
the
Such a
next
great
4
idea.
days.
That is
Yeah.
I
People
really
will
think
forget
Kelsey
about
will
it
look
in the
forward to
next
that.
week.
People will still complain, but if anybody wants to go on a ride-along, Jason's offering,
Yeah.
he's got.
Well,
a seat
then
right
I'm like,
beside
why
him.
are you guys out there testing the icy road? I mean,
They have to,
clearly.
they have to. It is a little, it is dangerous. to
That
worry
doesn't
about
sound
it.
like-
And that's
yeah.
why we try to cancel it the night before, so they're
Yeah.
not up at 4 when the roads are almost always worse than 4.
Yeah.
And they're rarely better, you know, so. yeah.
Well, okay. Well,
Good
we
stuff.
did it. Hopefully that
Hope-
subsides
hopefully we don't
for
have
a
to do it
while. It's
anymore.
still
That'd be
Super
great.
Bowl, but we'll time.
It's a 50 next week.
All right. So I think
It's-
anything
I'm
else to
telling
bring
you,
up?
Super Bowl Monday.
Man, it dropped.
We might
yeah.
want to just go
Your
ahead
chair.
and call it, just
Yeah.
to be on the safe side.
I'm losing 10 pounds, that's all there is to it. So the TAC meeting on, February the 8th, that'll be before our next board meeting. So if anybody has any questions
Early.
that you need, feel free. I know Shelley's been at, most of them here lately, and myself. Feel free to email us any questions you want us to ask them at TAC, cause they always give us a few minutes there. Is there any questions from the board? I always like to welcome any questions that they might have to the board and try and bring them back. And we haven't, it seems like the communication seems to be, well there, so
And
I
I'd
haven't really
reiterate
got any questions, but
another
if we
thank
do.
you for that, the TAC, and the way they set that up with the new leadership and in just including everyone. Everybody's in, everybody gets a voice. I think that is just, I think it's really good for our staff to be able to know they've got someone they can go to. If they got a positive, where we get almost as many positives that we get as questions. So, it's been great.
That's good. It's always nice.
So thank you, guys.
Like I said, if you do have any questions, please just email them to one of us too, and we'll get them to them.
Try to be there this
We'll try
summer.
and ask. We're-
Swim
Okay.
season and basketball season. Oof, didn't make it easy to get to those.
Okay. Well, anything
That's
else
all
for
over.
executive? Nope.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Pick one, Linda. Roll
Yeah.
call.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We're an executive. Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Did you guys see Lebanon is putting $42 million on their
On their ballot?
on the ballot for capital, only for no new construction, only capital improvements.
What do they do with
They're
their
gonna go through their whole district and redo everything that needs to be redone. $42 million capital improvements, and it's a non